and today we will be discussing mindful eating. And before we begin, just our general disclaimer, this information is being provided in order to increase your awareness. It is not intended to be used as medical advice. If you believe that you may have a medical condition or specific questions regarding your health, please speak with your physician. And again, welcome to today's Wellness Wednesday. I appreciate you all being here today. Today, we are diving into a topic that affects all of us, which is mindful eating. We are going to start by talking about what mindful eating really means and why it's important for our overall health and our well-being. Then we're going to talk about adopting some healthier eating habits. We're going to look at some common barriers that are going to potentially get in the way of a balanced eating pattern, because if we are being honest, life gets busy and it's not always easy to make the best decisions for our health. And finally, I'm going to share some practical tips and strategies for everyday situations that you could start using right away to make your mindful choices more efficient. That way you are in more control of your health and your eating habits. So mindful eating is a practice that involves paying full attention to the experience of eating and drinking, both inside and out of our body. It is rooted in mindfulness, which is the act of being present and fully engaged in the moment without judgment. That is key there, without any judgment. So some principles of mindful eating are going to be awareness, noticing the colors, the smells, the textures, the flavors, the temperatures of your food. Practicing non-judgment by observing your thoughts and feelings without labeling food as good or bad, injecting morality into that. Presence is just simply eating and drinking without distractions like phones, TVs while we're at work or trying to multitask, just being in that moment and being present. Listening to our body, of course, is simply just recognizing and being in touch with things like our hunger and our fullness cues. And we are eating in response to those rather than in response to emotions or potential triggers externally. And lastly is gratitude, just simply being appreciative of that food, where that food came from, and the amount of effort and work it took to prepare that food for us. So let's take a moment to explore the difference between mindful eating and traditional dieting or food restriction. So on the left-hand side, we can see that mindful eating is all about being present. It's all about slowing down, tuning into those hunger and fullness cues, as I mentioned, and enjoying food without judgment. It encourages a balanced and a sustainable, long-lasting relationship with food. While on the other hand, when we look at the right side, dieting is often going to involve rigid rules. It's going to inject that morality into food, labeling it as good or bad. And dieting can lead to some short-term weight loss, but it's also going to have long-term issues like nutritional deficiencies and an unhealthy mindset or attitude around eating and mealtime. So the goal here is to highlight how shifting from restriction and dieting to mindfulness or mindful eating can both support your physical and your emotional well-being. So looking at the difference between mindless and mindful eating, on the left, we again see common habits associated with mindless eating, things like eating while we are distracted, turning to food for emotional comfort, rushing through our meals without paying attention to our body's cues, as I've mentioned. These behaviors can lead to overeating and a disconnection from what our actual nutritional needs are. On the right, we see that stark contrast with mindful eating, which is all about being present and intentional, as I've mentioned. It means tuning into the hunger, savoring the food, stopping when we are full. Mindful eating helps us build a healthier, more balanced relationship with food, one that is going to support both physical and emotional well-being. This slide describes some of the basics and acronym on mindful eating. So B, before eating, just simply breathe, check in. What are your emotions and how are those impacting your food cravings and your choices? Because there's a difference between our biological hunger and some emotional cravings that we might have. You might not actually be hungry. Maybe you're thirsty. So really be in tune with our body and being aware of if we are actually hungry or not. A is for assessing the food. This is a great opportunity to check in with your portion size. See what is on your plate. Notice the colors, the flavors, the textures. S is for slowing down. Slow down while you are eating. Try setting a 20-minute timer for normal size meals. Practice putting your fork or your spoon down between bites, making sure you're removing all distractions such as your phone, your TV, work whenever possible. I is for investigating your hunger throughout the meal. Pay attention to those signals and those cues that the body is sending you. If you're feeling satisfied halfway through your meal, do not feel pressured to clear your plate. Many of us were raised that way. You needed to clear your plate before you could leave the table. That is not something you need to do. If you are full, you are welcome to stop eating, pack up those leftovers for another time. C is for chewing your food, of course. Just allow yourself to taste that food. Pay attention to those textures and those tastes in your mouth. Do not simply just chase after the next bite. Doing this is also going to help prevent any digestive discomfort that you might experience when you eat too fast. And S for the last one is to savor your food. Simply just taking the time to choose food that you enjoy, food that makes you feel good. It gets you such a more better experience with your meals and your mealtime. You have such more satisfaction from each meal. So to eat mindfully is a 3-step process for being mindful of your eating habits. Those are reflecting on your eating habits, replacing unhealthy eating habits with healthier choices, and then lastly, reinforcing those new, healthier eating habits you are adopting. So let's take a moment to reflect on our current eating habits. This is a very powerful first step towards making healthy choices. The first thing that you're going to want to do here is start by creating a list of some of your eating habits. You're going to track these for at least a few days, maybe a week or two. Write down every single thing that you eat and you drink. Pay attention as well to how you felt when you decided to eat. Write down some of your emotions linked to that food, especially when you're not actually hungry. Were you just simply tired? Were you stressed? Were you bored? You needed something to do? And then after some time, you need to identify some patterns you may have. Review your notes. Highlight any habits that may lead to overeating. Some common ones are eating too fast. Maybe you are standing while you are eating. You're eating when you are not hungry. You're always getting dessert or you are skipping meals. Pick a few of these habits that you would like to work on, but remember, don't tackle all of these at once. Pick one or two, work on those, and then once you break that habit and change that, then you could choose more. We want to set ourselves up for success. Step 3 here is to recognize your cues. Think about what triggers those habits. Create a list of those eating cues, which are the situations or the feelings that prompt you to eat. Maybe it's when you're stressed, when you're watching TV, or when you're simply bored. Circle those cues that you want to work on, but again, only choose a few here. Don't choose all of them at once. And then step 4, of course, is to make a plan. Ask yourself how you are going to avoid this cue. And being realistic as well, there are some things in life like stress we simply cannot avoid. So if that is the situation, determine if there is a healthier way you can respond to that cue. This process is not about perfection. It's about awareness and making small, sustainable changes. Next, we're going to talk about replacing unhealthy eating habits with some mindful alternatives. Sometimes we eat out of habit, like snacking while we're watching TV without actually realizing how much we are consuming. Sometimes we eat too fast at the same time. We eat when we are stressed or we are bored, or we just simply have unbalanced meals. So some mindful alternatives to those are going to be turning off screens and limiting any distractions, taking smaller bites, chewing thoroughly to slow down, pause and check in with your hunger, and you stop eating when you are full. And something that we could all benefit from is creating that weekly meal plan. If your meals often feel unbalanced, planning ahead with that meal plan can help you build more nourishing, satisfying meals that will support your well-being. And I want you to pause for a moment and think of any of these unhealthy habits resonated with you. And if so, are there any that may be good to try to change starting today? And then once you begin replacing unhealthy habits with mindful alternatives, the next step is reinforcing those healthy changes. Start out by celebrating your small wins. Every mindful choice adds up and helps you stay motivated along the journey. Most important one on here, in my opinion, is being flexible and adjusting when needed. You need to remember there is no one size fits all approach. What works for me may not work for you, and vice versa. So be flexible enough to pivot and adjust and change your plan when you notice something is not working for you. Use reminders, tracking, any tools at your disposal to stay consistent and recognize how far you have come. And then create a supportive environment. Tell your friends and your family that you are trying to change, make some healthier habits, and surround yourself with people in that environment that are going to encourage you along the way and not simply tempt you back into your old habits. So, some tips and strategies for everyday life. Workplace challenges. We spend a large portion of every day, every week, and every month at our job, and this can make mindful eating a real challenge. There are busy schedules, workplace stress, emotional triggers, and even social pressures. All of these things are going to influence how and what we eat. And sometimes we're going to eat quickly because we are between meetings or jobs, and we're just going to grab whatever is convenient or just a snack because maybe the food options are not readily available. So, limited food or that abundance of treats in the break room is going to make that even more challenging to stay intentional with our choices. So, being aware of these workplace challenges is the first step. So, what we need to do is plan ahead. If we know that these are things that are going to impact us, try bringing balanced meals and snacks to work and making sure no matter what your job is, you are taking a few mindful moments every day before eating so that way those small changes can make a big difference for you. And then mindful holiday eating tips. As the holidays are coming up, there's going to be an increase in travel, an increase in parties and feasts that we are attending. This is going to disrupt our normal daily life and it is going to make it harder to stay present and intentional with our eating. So, a few tips that you can do is budget wisely. Budget those calories or those meals like you would budget for your gifts. At these feasts and parties, do not feel like you have to try and have to eat everything. Make sure you're choosing your favorites and skipping out some of the other things. Spend your calories on what brings you joy. Taking a 10-minute holiday pause after that first plate of food. We're always tempted to go back for more, but make sure you take a break. Chat with friends and family, sip some water, enjoy the music and the company of those that you love and you care for. This is going to give your brain some time to register that fullness. You might be satisfied without having to go back for seconds. And then distance yourself from the snack table. This is something that I always struggle with, hovering around maybe where the charcuterie board is or where the desserts are. It's very easy to mindlessly grab another cookie while you're talking or grabbing a snack, but instead keep some distance from there. And if you need something to keep yourself occupied, bring some mints or chew some gum. And just like food shopping, you don't want to arrive hungry because what happens? You are going to buy things that you don't need or even necessarily want just because you're hungry. The same thing happens when you're going for one of these meals or parties. Make sure that you have a light, balanced meal before you go because then you're going to be less tempted to overdo it while you are there. And then sip smart. Holiday drinks can be sneaky, so make sure you're alternating alcoholic drinks with water or even mocktails, making sure that you are staying refreshed, hydrated, and balanced. And when possible, avoid alcohol altogether. And then get moving. Whatever it might be, whether you go for a walk, dance, anything that gets you up and moving, because we don't want to just slump on the couch after a big meal, which is something we are all tempted to do after eating a whole bunch. So get moving, whatever form that may be. And then just be savvy at the buffet. Before filling up that plate, take a lap around, see what all of your options are, and choose mindful choices rather than just piling that food on. And remember that the holidays are about connection, they're about laughter, they're about joy. And food is part of the fun, but it does not have to be the main event. Focus on the people as well. I have three top takeaways for you all today. One is to be present with your food. Remember to slow down, remove distractions, and tune into your body's hunger and fullness cues. Number two, replace and reinforce habits. Identify mindless eating patterns and swap them for mindful alternatives, and remember to celebrate the small wins along the way to stay motivated. And then number three, plan ahead for success, whether it's the work or during the holidays. Thoughtful planning, like prepping meals and creating that supportive environment, makes mindful eating easier and more sustainable. A resource to highlight here is our one-on-one telephonic health coaching to help you reach your wellness goals. If this is something that you need assistance with, all you need to do is call the number on the screen to schedule. This is a trusted resource for tailored interactive health coaching, very personalized to you, no cost as Geisinger members, and you have unlimited access to this resource. I would like to thank you all for attending today. Again, my name is Andrew, and I hope you all have a great rest of the day. And bye-bye.